Hey guys, back at it again with another video, and I am so excited about tonight. It is the national title game. Um, I got both teams right at the very beginning of the playoff. I said it was going to be Alabama and Clemson. I'm glad that those two teams got in. I was right in that Washington kept it marginally closer than a lot of people expected. I saw Clemson winning by 3 touchdowns. I didn't think that they'd win 30 something to nothing. Um, but I'm very excited that we get a rematch of last year's national title game in this year's national title game. And so I just kind of wanted to go through some guys that you can watch for if you're looking at draft prospects for your particular team tonight. First and foremost, let's talk quarterback. Let's talk about Deshaun Watson. Uh, you know, Deshaun Watson at the very beginning of the year was everyone's clear-cut number one quarterback. And he kind of fell off a bit this year. And when I say he fell off, I don't mean like Christian Hackenberg fell off, where he was hyped as the number one quarterback, and by the end of by the time the draft rolled around, no one wanted to even take him. But the Jets decided in round 2 that that was a good idea. Regardless, Watson has kind of lost some of that luster. There hasn't been a lot of progression. It's more or less the same tape that you're getting from a sophomore, which is still really good tape. You just kind of want to see a little bit more. He can help himself out by having a really good game tonight, and I'll talk about why in a minute, but I just want to get through the rest of this Clemson offense. At running back, you have Wayne Gallman, NFL-size running back, about 6 feet, 6'1", 210, 215, a little bit of an upright runner, very strong at running through the hole. He welcomes contact, which is great. He can be an asset out of the backfield. Just an all-around really solid player. He's in my top 100. Just a really solid back. I think has a great upside going forward. Can be an every down back at the next level. I don't think he gets talked about enough because he could have come out last year as a redshirt sophomore and decided not to. And I feel at times you can kind of become yesterday's news if you don't strike while the iron's hot, because I've barely heard anything on him this year, except for when I'm watching a Clemson game. No one really talks about him, and it's a damn shame because he's quite a talented running back. Moving on, you have the number one wide receiver in this entire class, Mike Williams, the receiver for Clemson, coming off of a horrific neck injury to start next year, or to start last year. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. To start last year. Broke his neck, missed the entire year. Was a little bit worried about him coming into the year, how he'd respond. By the end of the Auburn game, he shut me up, and he was instantly in my top 2. And by about week 2, I think he was my number 1. Very, very solid running back. Probably the closest thing that we've had to like a projected dominant receiver at the next level. And like Odell Beckham, I don't think anyone kind of saw what he's become. But when I look at Mike Williams on tape, I see A.J. Green, and I think that that's a tremendous comparison to have when you're being mentioned as an A.J. Green clone. Last up on Clemson's offense is tight end Jordan Leggett, kind of in that Jordan Reed mold, not really a great blocker, kind of going to be used a lot more in the slot, has okay hands. Like he's not a top level tight end in a very, very good tight end class. But definitely someone that is going to be taken in the top 100 picks, going to be used more as a slot receiver as teams start getting away from inline blocking tight ends and more of the receiving tight ends. He can be very valuable in the NFL. Switching over to the other end, as I mentioned earlier, Alabama has quite a few freaks that are going to be going after Deshaun Watson, so let's talk about them. Number 1, first and foremost, is Jonathan Allen, the defensive lineman, my number 2 player in this class. Absolute monster. Could have been probably a first or second round pick last year. Put on a little bit more size, got stronger, got faster. He's unblockable at times this year. And he just wreaks havoc amongst the inside. He's 6'3", 294. So kind of that undersized guy. Not really much in the way of a pass rusher, but he will chuck your offensive lineman all over the field. So watching him and the rest of those pass rushers, like Ryan Anderson, who is kind of that early day 2 type pick, like that 32, 33 to 50 range. Tim Williams, who a lot of people think could be a top 15, top 10 pick even. Reuben Foster, the middle linebacker, who I wasn't so high on at the beginning of the year, but has since really changed my mind. He's in my top, I believe, 6 players in this class. Just an absolute rangy freak. Lays the wood, everything you want in a good middle linebacker. And then in the back end, you've got Marlon Humphrey, and that's where Watson can take advantage because Humphrey surrenders a lot of big plays. I heard today he surrenders for per catch about 17 yards per catch. And Mike Williams is a big play wide receiver, and Deshaun Watson likes to go deep and, well, take the top off the defense. And that's where Alabama is susceptible, because if Marlon Humphrey surrenders a big play, Alabama is in an unfamiliar territory playing catch-up. Moving over to the Alabama offense, and there really isn't much as far as draftable and draft-eligible talent. They're a very young team on offense. But you have to look at the left tackle, Cameron Robinson. Up and down year, again, can really solidify himself as a first-round pick with a good game. Right now, he's kind of on that fringe for me. I think I have him in the 40s on my big board. But a good game against Clemson, and he does tend to step up in these big pressure games and these, big title games and everything. So hopefully he has a great game today and can kind of right the ship, if you will. Then you have O.J. Howard, who recently became my number 1 tight end in this class. Just a superior blocker. He balled out against Washington. And if you remember last year, he balled out against Clemson in the same game. So I look for that again to happen. And I'm really, really amped to see if O.J. Howard can take over the game like he did last year. And finally, I'm not sure if he's going to come out, but he might. He's not Calvin Ridley. That he's not draft eligible, but Ardarius Stewart is. And Ardarius Stewart is kind of like a Percy Harvin to me. You'll see him line up in the backfield. He'll take reverses. You hit him on screens. I think he's a better pro prospect than Calvin Ridley is. Whether or not he comes out remains to be seen. Moving over to Clemson's defense. Not really much. They got kind of cleaned out last year due to all the guys, declaring for the draft and being seniors and everything. But there are still 2 big names. One is the defensive tackle, Carlos Watkins. He's going to be working inside. Just a big, solid defensive tackle, about 6'2", about 300, 305. Just a nice, big space eater on the inside. Probably someone you can get at a value in around round 3. And then out on the edge, covering either Ridley or Ardarius Stewart, is Cordrea Tankersley. The corner, I think, has a better upside than Mackenzie Alexander did last year. So there you go. Those are pretty much all of the draft-eligible talents on either team to watch for tonight. And before I get out of here, I'm going to give you a score update. I am calling the upset. I am going Clemson 21, Alabama 17. Deshaun Watson as your player of the game. I'm going to say that Watson throws for 250 and 2 touchdowns. So there you have it. As usual, guys, like, comment, subscribe, thoughts down below. I'll talk to you soon.